The station was called Helix Gate, a place so large that no one could see its end. It floated between trade routes like a metal city, filled with lights, moving walkways, and voices from 100 different species. Ships arrived and left every minute. For most beings, Helix Gate was a place of opportunity. For one alien woman, it had become a place of waiting. She sat near the outer ring of the station, close to a wall that hummed softly with power. The floor there was colder, the lights dimmer. Travelers rarely stopped in that section, unless they had to. She kept herself small, folding her long limbs carefully so they did not block the path. One of her legs was twisted in a way her species' bodies were not meant to bend, and a thin metal brace held it steady. Along the side of her head, where smooth skin should have been, ran a faint scar that glowed weakly with damaged neural tissue. Her species valued harmony, speed of thought, and physical balance. She had lost all three. Beings passed her without slowing. Some noticed her and quickly looked away. Others pretended she was part of the station, like a damaged panel that maintenance would fix later. A few paused for half a second, long enough for their discomfort to show, then moved on. No one spoke to her. She had learned not to ask. In front of her was a public ration unit, its screen flashing a calm blue light. She extended a thin hand and pressed her identification crystal to the surface. The machine made a soft error sound. Letters appeared in a language she could barely read anymore, but she knew what they meant. Access denied. Status inactive. She lowered her hand and waited. Sometimes the machine corrected itself. Sometimes it did not. Today, it did not. A group of traders passed by, their voices loud and confident. One of them glanced at her brace and shook his head slightly, as if seeing a cracked tool. Another muttered something about inefficiency. They laughed and kept walking. She did not react. Long ago, she had learned that reacting only made it worse. Across the station, a human named Elias Ward was finishing his shift. He wore a plain maintenance uniform with oil stains on the sleeves and a small Earth emblem on the chest. He was not important by galactic standards. He repaired conduits, replaced panels, and checked air filters. Humans were still new to places like Helix Gate. Most species saw them as useful labor and little more. Elias was tired. His back ached, and his hands smelled of metal. He was thinking about food and rest as he walked along the outer ring, following a blinking maintenance marker. That was when he saw her. At first, he thought she was waiting for someone. Then he noticed how long she stayed still, how carefully she held herself, and how people moved around her, like water around a stone. He slowed his steps without realizing it. The ration unit made its error sound again. Elias stopped. He had seen injured beings before. Space was not kind. But there was something about the way everyone avoided her that felt wrong. Not hostile. Just empty. Like she had already been erased. He walked closer. A few nearby travelers glanced at him, surprised that a human would approach. One security drone adjusted its position slightly, optics focusing on Elias. "Hey," Elias said gently, keeping his voice low and calm. "Is it not working?" The alien woman looked up. Her eyes were large and dark, reflecting the station lights. For a moment, there was fear in them, not of violence, but of attention. Then, confusion. Then, something like disbelief. She did not answer right away. Her voice had grown weak from lack of use. "The unit does not accept me," she said finally, her words slow but clear. "It is not an error." Elias frowned. "You sure? Those things mess up all the time." She shook her head slightly. "My status is inactive." Elias did not fully understand what that meant, but he understood enough. He glanced at the screen, then back at her. "Have you eaten today?" She hesitated. Lying would be easier, but something about his tone made her stop. "No." Elias exhaled quietly. He reached into his bag and pulled out a wrapped ration bar, human-made, simple and dense with nutrients. He held it out, not pushing it into her space. "You can have this," he said. "I've got more later." Around them, movement slowed. A few beings stopped walking altogether. A Virex official narrowed his eyes. Helping the unproductive was not illegal, but it was frowned upon. Humans were still being watched closely. Their behavior was being judged. The alien woman stared at the ration as if it might vanish. Accepting aid marked her as dependent. Refusing it meant hunger. "I cannot repay you," she said quietly. Elias shrugged. "That's okay." After a moment, she took it with careful hands. Their fingers brushed briefly. Her skin was cool, almost fragile. She ate slowly, as if afraid the food would be taken away. Elias sat down on the floor beside her, ignoring the looks. The metal was cold through his uniform. But he stayed. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated again. Names still mattered to her, even if nothing else did. "I am called Seiren." I'm Elias." They sat in silence for a bit. The station noise filled the space between them. Seiren felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Not hope. Something quieter. Relief, maybe. Or the simple fact of not being alone. "You should not be here," she said after a while. "With me." Elias looked at her. "Why not?" "It draws attention," she said, "and attention brings consequences." He followed her gaze to the security drone and the watching officials. "Yeah," he said. "I noticed. Humans are still being evaluated," she continued. Association with a failed individual may reflect poorly. Elias gave a small, humorless smile. Figures. She waited for him to stand up, for him to say something polite and leave. That was how it always went. He did not stand. "Can I ask what happened?" he said instead. Her fingers tightened around the wrapper. "There was an accident," she said. "A data surge. I shielded others. The damage was permanent. I could no longer perform at required efficiency. And they just left you?" "They reassigned me," she said carefully. "To here." Elias understood that word too. Reassigned meant removed. Out of sight. "That's messed up," he said before he could stop himself. Seiren tilted her head. "It is logical. Maybe for them," Elias said. "Not for me." A message chimed in Elias's ear. "Station notice." He ignored it. Another came. Official this time. He sighed and stood up slowly. Seiren's chest tightened. This was it. Instead of leaving, Elias turned toward the security drone. "Hey," he said, raising his voice just enough. "Who do I talk to about inactive status errors?" The drone hovered closer. "State your identification and purpose." Elias Ward. Maintenance Division. "Purpose is to file a complaint." There was a pause. Nearby, more beings stopped to watch. "On what grounds?" the drone asked. Elias glanced back at Seiren. She looked smaller than ever, sitting there with her brace and empty wrapper. "On the grounds," he said evenly, "that abandoning someone because they're injured is wrong." The word echoed more than he expected. The drone did not respond immediately. Somewhere in the station, systems were flagging this moment. A human was refusing to look away. Seiren felt something shift inside her. Fear, yes. But also something dangerous. Hope. And across Helix Gate, eyes were turning not toward the disabled alien woman, but toward the human who had chosen to stay. The security drone hovered in front of Elias, its lenses adjusting as it processed his words. Around them, the station noise seemed to soften, as if Helix Gate itself was listening. Travelers slowed their steps. A few beings activated recording devices, curious or cautious. "Your complaint has been registered," the drone said at last. "Further action requires review by station authority." "That's fine," Elias replied. "I'll wait." The drone paused again. Waiting in this location may disrupt transit flow. Elias looked around. The path was wide. No one was blocked. "We're not in the way." The drone did not argue, but it did not leave. It remained there, watching. Seiren's hands trembled slightly in her lap. "You should go," she said quietly. "You have done enough." Elias sat back down beside her. "I'm not done." She closed her eyes for a moment. This was how things escalated. This was how kindness turned into punishment. She had seen it before, when others tried to help her, and then disappeared from her life. She did not want that weight on another being. Humans cannot afford this, she said. Your species is still fragile in the council's eyes. Elias snorted softly. So are you. That doesn't mean you don't matter. She opened her eyes and studied his face. Humans looked strange to her soft features, expressive eyes, emotions visible without effort. It was unsettling and comforting at the same time. Minutes passed. Then footsteps approached. A Virex station official stopped in front of them. His species was tall and angular, with polished armor plates integrated into his clothing. His expression was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Human, the official said. You are creating an unnecessary disturbance. Elias stood up this time, slowly and respectfully. I'm just asking why she's been denied basic access. The official glanced at Seiren. His gaze lingered on her brace, her scar, the subtle signs of neural damage. His tone did not change. Her status is inactive. She no longer contributes to any recognized collective. Resources are allocated accordingly. So because she's hurt, Elias said, she doesn't get food? She receives what is required for minimal survival. The official replied. No more. Seiren flinched. Elias did not. That's not what I'm seeing, Elias said. That ration unit wouldn't even respond to her. The official turned back to Elias. Human ethics are not universal. Maybe they should be, Elias said. A ripple moved through the crowd. Some beings looked offended, others looked thoughtful. The official straightened slightly. You are overstepping. Then I'll step carefully, Elias replied. But I'm not stepping away. The official studied him for a long moment. Then he activated a small holo panel. You may file a formal appeal. Be aware that this process may affect your standing. I'm aware. Seiren's voice broke through, soft but firm. Please, do not do this. Both of them looked at her. You do not understand, she said. If you continue, you will be marked as inefficient by association. Your people need acceptance here. Elias knelt in front of her, so their eyes were level. Listen to me, he said gently. My people survived a long time before anyone accepted us. We're used to standing out. She searched his face, looking for doubt. She found none. The official cleared his throat. Make your choice, human. Elias stood and faced him. I want to file the appeal. And I want medical review access for her. The official's eyes narrowed slightly. That is not your role. Then assign me a role, Elias said. Because I'm not leaving her here. There was silence. Then, to the surprise of many, another voice joined in. I will support the appeal. A human woman stepped forward from the crowd. She wore a diplomatic badge, Earth symbol clear and bright. Her posture was calm, her expression serious. My name is Dr. Lena Moreau, she said. Human liaison. I was observing. The official's gaze shifted. The situation had changed. Your presence was not requested, the official said. But it is permitted, Lena replied smoothly. And this case is now of interest to Earth. More humans appeared behind her. Engineers, medics, aides. Not many, but enough to be noticed. Seiren's breath caught. She had not expected this. She had expected Elias to stand alone. Lena knelt beside her. May I? She asked, gesturing toward Seiren's brace. Seiren nodded slowly. Lena examined it carefully, her movements respectful. This is outdated, she said softly. We can do better. The official stiffened. Human medical interference is voluntary, Lena said, and clearly needed. The crowd grew. Word was spreading fast. Elias felt a mix of relief and fear. He had hoped someone would back him up, but now the weight of what he had started pressed down on him. This was no longer just about one act of kindness. It was becoming a statement. The official deactivated his holo panel. This matter will be reviewed by the station council, he said. Until then, the inactive individual may be granted temporary access. Temporary. Conditional. Seiren bowed her head slightly. It was more than she had been allowed in cycles. Elias smiled faintly. Thank you. The official turned away, clearly displeased. As the crowd dispersed, Lena looked at Elias. You caused a stir. Wasn't the plan, Elias said. It never is, she replied. They helped Siren to her feet. She leaned on Elias's arm, embarrassed, but grateful. Every step sent pain through her leg, but she did not complain. They moved to a quieter medical bay on the human side of the station. It was smaller, simpler, but clean and warm. Human equipment hummed softly. As Lena and a medic scanned Siren, Elias stood nearby, unsure what to do with his hands. She's been compensating for years, Lena said quietly to another doctor. No proper support. No rehab. Can she recover? Elias asked. Lena hesitated. We don't know yet. But we can help. Siren listened, her heart pounding. Help. Not discard. Not relocate. Help. Later, as she rested on a medical cot, she looked at Elias. Why? She asked. He considered the question. Because someone should have done it sooner. She swallowed. You risk much. He shrugged. Worth it. A screen on the wall flickered to life. News feeds from across the station showed images of the earlier confrontation. Commentary had already begun. Opinions were divided. Some called humans reckless. Others called them dangerous idealists. A few called them compassionate. Siren realized something then. For the first time since her injury, her existence was not hidden. She was not invisible. And that terrified her. Things will not be easy now, she said. Elias nodded. They never are. Outside the medical bay, station systems recalculated. Council members argued. Records were pulled. Old laws were reread. All because one human had refused to walk past a disabled alien woman. And Helix Gate would never be quite the same again. The next cycle at Helix Gate felt different. The station still hummed with engines and voices. But under the noise there was tension, like a storm waiting to break. News of what had happened spread faster than anyone expected. Screens showed the image of a human standing beside a disabled alien woman, refusing to move. Opinions filled the air like static. Some beings mocked the humans, calling them emotional and inefficient. Others watched quietly, saying nothing, thinking more than they spoke. Siren woke in the human medical bay with a soft light above her and a strange sense of safety around her. The bed supported her body evenly, adjusting to her shape. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then pain reminded her she was awake. A human medic noticed her stirring and smiled. Easy, he said. You're safe. Safe. The word felt heavy and unfamiliar. Elias was sitting nearby, asleep in a chair, his head tilted forward, arms crossed. He looked uncomfortable. But he had not left. Siren watched him for a long time, studying the slow rise and fall of his chest. No one had stayed with her like this since before the accident. Lena entered quietly, holding a data tablet. Good, you're awake, she said to Siren. We ran some scans. Siren tensed. And? Lena pulled up a hologram of Siren's skeletal and neural structure. The damage is serious, she said honestly. But it's not hopeless. Siren's breath caught. Hope was a dangerous word. We can't restore everything, Lena continued. But we can improve your mobility, reduce the pain, give you independence again. Siren closed her eyes. She had imagined this conversation many times before, always ending in disappointment. Why would you do this? She asked. There is no gain. Lena's voice was calm. There is gain. Just not the kind your galaxy values. Elias woke up then, blinking. Did I miss something? You missed her almost throwing me out of the room with her questions, Lena said lightly. Siren made a small sound that might have been a laugh. It surprised her. Work began quickly. Human engineers brought adaptive frames and flexible supports. Nothing looked aggressive or cold. Everything was designed to adjust, not force. They asked Siren questions before touching her. They listened. That alone was shocking. As days passed, Siren practiced standing with new support along her leg. It was painful, exhausting, and slow. She fell more than once. Each time, humans helped her up without frustration, without judgment. Outside the bay, the galaxy argued. Station council meetings ran long. Representatives from multiple species demanded explanations. Why were humans interfering? Why were they helping someone deemed inefficient? Why was a single disabled alien given so much attention? Lena stood before one such council session, her posture straight. Because she is a person, she said simply. That word caused discomfort. Personhood was often tied to productivity. You risk encouraging dependency, one council member said. No, Lena replied. We encourage recovery. Elias returned to work during this time, but he was watched closely. Some colleagues avoided him. Others quietly expressed support. A few humans started bringing extra food, extra blankets, quietly leaving them near Siren's bay. Siren noticed. One evening, as Elias helped her walk a short distance on her own, she stopped suddenly. Tears filled her eyes. I was forgotten, she said softly. I had accepted that. Elias stayed silent, letting her speak. My people taught me that worth comes from harmony and function, she continued. When I lost those, I lost myself. He nodded. Humans mess that up all the time, he said. We break. We fail. We still show up. She looked at him. Why? He thought for a moment. Because one day, it might be us on the floor. And we hope someone won't step over us. The next broadcast changed everything. A group of aliens appeared on screen injured, aged, damaged in different ways. They spoke from hidden places across the station. Some were cargo workers with broken limbs. Some were data analysts with failing neural systems. All had been quietly pushed aside. They spoke because humans had helped them too. Not loudly, not officially, but consistently. The reaction was immediate. Shock, anger, fear. Station security tried to regain control. This is unauthorized, they declared, but it was too late. The story was out. Humans were not just helping one disabled alien woman. They were helping all the ones the galaxy had abandoned. Siren watched the screen from her bed, her hands shaking. This is because of me, Elias shook his head. This is because of what they were already doing. The council issued a warning. Human access would be limited, resources restricted. Political pressure increased. Earth responded with calm. We accept your limits, the human ambassador said. But we will not stop caring. That sentence echoed across networks. Siren took her first unassisted steps 2 cycles later. They were small, unsteady, but real. Humans clapped quietly. Not to embarrass her, but to celebrate. She cried openly this time. When she returned briefly to the public ring of Helix Gate, leaning on a new adaptive cane, the crowd parted differently. Some still looked away. Others stared. A few bowed their heads in respect. A disabled alien woman was walking again, and she was not alone. The galaxy was beginning to understand something it had never valued before. Strength was not just the ability to stand. It was the choice to lift someone else when they could not. And humanity had made that choice loudly enough that no one could ignore it anymore. Time moved forward. But Helix Gate never returned to what it had been before. The station still functioned, ships still arrived and departed, and trade still flowed. Yet something unseen had changed. Conversations lasted longer. Glances lingered. Beings noticed who was left behind. Siren no longer slept in the medical bay. She now lived in a small habitat provided by the human delegation. Simple but warm. Each morning, she stood on her own legs, using her adaptive support only when needed. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled her life. Elias walked with her often through the quieter rings of the station. At first, he worried she would be overwhelmed, but she insisted. I must be seen, she told him. Not hidden, and she was seen. Some aliens turned away as before. Others watched her with curiosity. A few approached her carefully, asking questions they had never dared to ask before. She answered them honestly. She did not hide her past or her damage. She spoke of it calmly, without shame. The station council met again, this time under pressure from many sides. Reports showed a rise in unrest among lower-tier workers across several species. Injured individuals were demanding review of their status. Entire collectives were questioning long-held rules. Human representatives were blamed for this disruption. "You destabilize our systems," one council member accused during a closed session. The human ambassador did not deny it. Some systems deserve to be questioned. Restrictions were placed on humans. Trade delays, limited access, silent punishments meant to encourage compliance. Earth responded by doing something unexpected. They stayed. Human ships did not withdraw. Human workers did not leave their posts. Human medics continued treating anyone who asked, within the rules given. They accepted every penalty without anger. Without apology, the galaxy watched, confused. Seiren was invited to speak before the council. At first, she refused. Fear gripped her like an old wound. But Elias stood beside her. Not pushing. Just present. "You don't owe anyone anything," he said. "I owe myself truth," she replied. When she entered the council chamber, the space felt enormous. Representatives from dozens of species watched her, some with interest, some with doubt, some with clear discomfort. She did not bow deeply. She stood as straight as she could. "I was once valuable," she began. "Then I was injured. My worth was reclassified." She described her exile. The silence. The waiting. The hunger. She spoke without anger, which made her words heavier. "I did not ask for special treatment," she said. "I asked not to be erased." She gestured toward the humans. "They did not fix me because I am useful. They helped me because I am alive." Murmurs filled the chamber. "If that belief is dangerous," she continued, "then perhaps your systems are already broken." The council did not respond immediately. Decisions were delayed. But something irreversible had happened. Across known space, similar conversations began. Human space gained a reputation. It became known as a place where the injured were not discarded, where age was not a crime, where failure did not mean exile. Other species noticed the effect. Loyalty among humans was fierce. Crews stayed together longer. Workers returned stronger after injury instead of disappearing. Some species began quietly copying human methods. Others resisted and paid the price. Entire populations that had been cast aside formed new communities around human stations. They shared knowledge, labor, and culture. They remembered who had helped them. Seiren was offered a role she never expected, an ambassador. Not because she was healed, but because she understood both sides, the efficient and the forgotten. She accepted. Elias attended the ceremony quietly, standing in the back. He wore the same worn uniform. No medals, no speeches, just pride. When Seiren found him afterward, she smiled. "You changed the galaxy." He shook his head. "I just sat down." She laughed, a real sound, clear and unafraid. Years passed. Helix Gate became a symbol, not of trade, but of transformation. Where once disabled beings waited to fade, now they waited to be helped. Not all species agreed. Not all change was peaceful. But it was happening. One day, a young alien child watched Seiren walk past and asked her guardian, "Why does she move differently?" The guardian answered, "Because she was hurt. And because someone cared." Seiren heard and kept walking, her steps steady. Elias eventually left Helix Gate. His work took him elsewhere. Humans spread their quiet defiance across the stars, not with weapons, but with open hands. The galaxy never forgot the lesson. Strength was not perfection. Progress was not efficiency alone. And humanity's greatest weapon was a simple refusal to turn away. All because, once, one human saw a disabled alien woman sitting alone and chose to stay.